I'm going to talk about some of the best practices that we found here at MTM in the technology areas, and that was trying to figure out a way to come up with standards. So standards aren't rules or goals or processes. Standards more like something that we were all able to talk about and agree on as a group, is this is what we're going to hold ourselves accountable for. So the way that we did that, the way that we went about it, the best way to go about it is to get a group of people together, get your entire department, your team, whatever it might be together, and bring those standards out from the group. What's important? So the example might be like being persistent. You can't make a rule like you have to be persistent, but it can absolutely be a standard. And then whenever you see somebody maybe who's not persistent, who's giving up, who's not trying to strive or to move where they should be going, you can definitely say something like, hey, we agreed to this. We agreed that we're going to be persistent, that we're going to move forward, that we're going to be, whatever the standards might be, being agile or patient or whatever's important to your particular area. You can create that standard. And so in a group setting, you make those standards everybody. So you try to create an environment where every single person plays a part of creating those standards, and so that we have buy-in from the entire team. It can be something you do maybe in a 30-45 minute meeting where you're just whiteboarding and brainstorming and trying to come up with some good ideas. Maybe it's a series of meetings where you get together and you talk about one at a time, and you just try to figure something out. Whatever works for you, it doesn't really matter. What's the important thing is you're trying to figure out what's important to your area, what's important to your team, and where do you want them to go. And so some of the things that I think worked really well were making sure, almost forcing participation, forcing people to contribute. And then something else it was done after the fact. So we came up with, in our area, 11 different standards. And I think it was important not to be rigid, because originally we talked about doing something like, I think we were going to do 5 standards because it'd be really easy. And then it was 8, and then we'll say, well, let's make, the 10 commandments type of a thing. And we ended up with 11 because that's really what we needed. So I think not being rigid is a really important thing when you're trying to figure out what's important to your area, because it's much more important to get it right than it is to set into a particular set of rules and then get that feedback. And so once we came up with our 11, something that I did, and I think it worked pretty well, is then go and you try to fit some kind of a famous quote around this standard or this word. So going back to the persistence thing, one of my favorite persistence quotes is a Latin proverb that says, when there is no wind, row. So be it Warren Buffett or Steve Jobs or Abraham Lincoln or Thomas Jefferson, whoever it might be, by adding a quote, you get a little bit extra credibility, a little bit extra oomph to this standard type of concept. And then the great things about standards is that oftentimes people aren't breaking the rules. Oftentimes people aren't kind of wandering away from what they should be, from something that's written or in some HR manual, but it is something that's not, they're not doing what you want. They're maybe not engaged, or they're not moving in the direction that they should be moving. And you can always refer back to this standard and say, well, are you being agile? Are you being kind? Whatever those standards are, or those important things are to your area, you can always kind of bring it back to these are our standards, and this is what we're trying to do in our area.